So who are the two wizards from the Rings of Power? Let's find out. Wes Hall, everybody, and welcome to another video. Well then, as the three of the, whoever knows how many episodes of the second season of the Rings of Power came out, and I have covered them in separate reviews, my dear friends. Should you wish to check them out, there are on my channel for you to watch. People have asked me what I think about the wizards in that show and their identity and who they might be. Because there, of course, have been multiple theories as far as the identity of these two wizards go. We are talking about the one who is called the Stranger and is traveling with Nori, the Harfoot, through the desert, eating bugs and scorpions and sitting on cacti. And the other one is the Dark Wizard, who apparently sent Middle Eastern assassins after the Stranger and Nori. And some of the more popular theories about these two wizards are that they might be, well, some of the two wizards, the blue wizards, that came to Middle-earth along with Gandalf and Saruman and Radagast. But also there's this theory around the Dark Wizard that he might eventually become the Witch King of Angmar. Now, let me just preface this by saying that none of this matters at all. The show established itself as being anti-Tolkien, anti-canonical, and even anti-fantasy a long time ago. Ever since the first episode of the first season came out, we have known this. And especially then, in the second season, they are doubling down on this. As of making of this video, 3 episodes have come out, and I have covered this in depth. There is no sense in delving into this show too deep and trying to discern what certain things might mean and trying to somehow fit it into Tolkien's legendarium. It is fun to laugh at it. It is fun to point out where they tried to do something that resembles something from the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, but it really isn't worth the time. But do you know what is worth the time? Going to the books, that which the showrunners said they would do, or that they did, and reading. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. As far as the Istari goes, my dear friends, there are many, many pages that Tolkien wrote about the Istari, and that can be found throughout all the books that were published, either during Tolkien's life or after his demise, published by his son Christopher Tolkien, already also the late Christopher Tolkien. You can find it in the Silmarillion, you can find information in the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, in the Unfinished Tales, and even in the very vast publication of the history of Middle-earth, counting multiple thick volumes of Tolkien's notes accompanied by his son's notes. And so if you want to know about Tolkien's trains of thought and his world building and his legendarium in general, I do recommend you get the history of Middle-earth. You can get them in like cheap paperbacks, and it is a very good read. It needs to be said that a lot of this material is just Christopher collecting his father's notes and adding his notes to it. And as it very often is, when one is world building, things change. And you jot down thoughts and theories and different possibilities. And some of them you might use, some of them you might discard. And it seems to me that some people are taking some of those like theories from the notes, like when Tolkien writes, it might be this or it might be that. And they are taking it as a holy word because, well, of course, when it fits their narrative, when, there's another person with a different narrative, that said person takes another note out of context and uses it to support his or her dummy argument. So, to make long story short, I have chosen 2 passages from 2 different works of art to read out to you about the study and then specifically about the blue wizards. And you might think what you will. I will provide you with my quote-unquote theory at the end of this video. The first one comes from the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, the subchapter or subpart called The Third Age, because the showrunners, they have been saying all along, well, we are adapting the appendices, so why don't we look into the appendices and the part that talks about the study? It says, the Third Age. These were the fading years of the Eldar. For long they were at peace, wielding the 3 rings while Sauron slept. And the 1 ring was lost, but they attempted nothing new, living in memory of the past. The dwarves hid themselves in deep places, guarding their hoards. But when evil began to stir again and dragons reappeared, one by one their ancient treasures were plundered, and they became a wandering people. Moria, for long, remained secure, but its numbers dwindled until many of its vast mansions became dark and empty. The wisdom and the lifespan of the Númenóreans also waned as they became mingled with lesser men. When, maybe, 1,000 years had passed, and the first shadow had fallen on Greenwood the Great, the Istari, or wizards, appeared in Middle-earth. It was afterwards said that they came out of the far west and were messengers sent to contest the power of Sauron and to unite all those who had the will to resist him. But they were forbidden to match his power with power, or to seek to dominate elves or men by force and fear. They came therefore in the shape of men, though they were never young and aged only slowly, and they had many powers of mind and hand. They revealed their true names to few, but used such names as were given to them. The 2 highest of this order, of whom it is said there were 5, were called by the Eldar Curunir, the man of skill, and Mithrandir, the grey pilgrim, but by men in the north Saruman and Gandalf. Curunir journeyed often into the east, but dwelt at last in Isengard. Mithrandir was closest in friendship with the Eldar, and wandered mostly in the west, and never made for himself any lasting abode. Throughout the Third Age, the guardianship of the 3 rings was known only to those who possessed them, but at the end it became known that they had been held at first by the 3 greatest of the Eldar, Gil-galad, Galadriel, and Círdan. Gil-galad, before he died, gave his ring to Elrond. Círdan later surrendered his to Mithrandir. For Círdan saw further and deeper than any other in Middle-earth, and he welcomed Mithrandir at the Grey Havens, knowing whence he came and whither he would return. "Take this ring, master," he said, "for your labours will be heavy, but it will support you in the weariness that you have taken upon yourself. For this is the ring of fire, and with it you may rekindle hearts in a world that grows chill. But as for me, my heart is with the sea, and I will dwell by the grey shores until the last ship sails. I will await you." So this is from the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, and of course, I would recommend, if you want to know more about the Istari. By the way, there are versions that say that there were more of them, more than 5, sent to Middle-earth, but 5 were the most powerful, and these are who they are. I mean, Gandalf and Saruman and Radagast and the 2 bluesies. But there might have been more of them, so they might have taken this information and just said, all right, so they are the other than the 5 of the Istari. However, people are mentioning that there is a version of the story that says that the 2 blue wizards came to Middle-earth in the Second Age and not in the Third Age. And that comes from the history of Middle-earth, which is, I think, the 12th volume of the history of Middle-earth, it is, in the subchapter called Last Writings, and it goes, it's just a note, right? It's it's a note jotted down by Tolkien, accompanied by his son, by his son's note, and it says, "No names are recorded for the 2 wizards," meaning the blue wizards. "They were never seen or known in lands west of Mordor. The wizards did not come at the same time. Possibly Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast did, but more likely Saruman the chief, and already over-mindful of this, came first and alone. Probably Gandalf and Radagast came together, though this has not yet been said. What is most probable? Glorfindel also met Gandalf at the Havens. The other two are only known to have existed by Saruman, Gandalf and Radagast, and Saruman in his wrath mentioning 5 was letting out a piece of private information. The reference of the last sentence is to Saruman's violent retort to Gandalf at the door of Orthanc, in which he spoke of the rods of the 5 wizards in the 2 towers, page 188. Another note is even rougher and more difficult. The other 2 came much earlier, at the same time probably as Glorfindel, when matters became very dangerous in the Second Age. Glorfindel was sent to aid Elrond and was, though not yet said, preeminent in the war in Eriador. But the other 2 Istari were sent for a different purpose. Morinethar and Romestamo, Darkness Slayer and East Helper. Their task was to circumvent Sauron, to bring help to the few tribes of men that had rebelled from Melkor worship, to stir up rebellion, and after his first fall to search out his hiding, in which they failed, and to cause dissension and disarray among the Dark East. They must have had very great influence on the history of the Second Age and Third Age, in weakening and disarraying the forces of East, who would both in the Second Age and Third Age otherwise have outnumbered the West. So, these are the 2 passages that I have chosen. Should you wish, you could go and check out the Unfinished Tales. I do recommend that, and of course the Silmarillion. But the finishing thoughts as far as the wizards go and the Istari is, firstly, who cares about the Rings of Power? But it is very wholesome and very entertaining to read out Tolkien's texts and to talk about them. So I'm enjoying this, actually. So the one on the left, the stranger, has been called an Istari, so I suppose he's one of them. Fine. And the one on the right, I think that the people who say that he might be the Witch King of Angmar are the closest to what I think. I mean, he appeared and went into Sauron's under his influence. He started, his allegiance with Sauron in the Second Age. But most sources, they say that, or Tolkien wrote, that he was probably of Númenorian descent, that he was a powerful sorcerer from Númenor. I mean, they don't have to stick to that, of course. What I think is that it's very possible that it doesn't matter. Can you see how much disrespect I hold for that show? These are original characters anyway. These 2 have got nothing to do with what Tolkien wrote. And myself, as far as the Istari goes, I stick to what was written by Tolkien himself and what was published in the Silmarillion, in the Unfinished Tales, and in the appendices to the Lord of the Rings. And that is that the 5 Istari came to Middle-earth in the Third Age. And this show is set in the Second Age. So by this logic, these 2 can't be Istari. I mean, or else they are breaking the law again. That little note from the peoples of Middle-earth, it's a nice theory, which I don't think really applies. Tolkien changed it, later to really all the 5 Istari coming to Middle-earth in the Third Age. So there you go. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little readouts, and think what you will, have your own theories. I mean, I will not tell you what to think, right? Neither should anyone tell me what I think. So, yeah, I don't really care about any opinions. I just don't really care about what anybody thinks. Right, na Marie.